Okay, we are now ready to go. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to Core Connect's Core Summit Webinar Series 2021. What a week we are having. Yes, it's Wednesday. Yes, I just remembered it's Wednesday, and it just feels like it's Sunday. But maybe I want it to be Sunday. Obviously, we are having so much fun in these educational series. So much great discussions are starting to arise, and I cannot imagine a more timely discussion today in lieu of what's been happening the last 72 hours. So we're going to have a great discussion. But as always, before I get started, please let's take a moment to introduce our guests and panelists. You've seen them before, but it's always good to reacquaint ourselves. Douglas, please.
I'm Douglas Ruark. I'm president of Regulation D Resources, and we are a firm that specializes in providing offering preparation services for securities offerings, specifically Regulation D and Regulation A+. And we've been operating for 22 years, and we are really here as to serve a specific part of the process, which is to assist in getting the filing in place and really quarterbacking the entire process for putting the Reg A+ in place and making sure that the client gets to market in an efficient manner and obviously in a compliant manner.
Perfect, thank you. And Etan, please.
Etan Butler here. I'm the chairman at Dalmore Group. We are a FINRA and SEC registered broker-dealer. We are headquartered in New York. We have offices nationally, active in all 50 states, founded in 2005. Since 2013 or so, we have been obsessed with coming up with innovative ways to take advantage of some of the Jobs Act-born exemptions to help companies raise capital online at scale through Regulation D, A, and CF. We're here to talk about Reg A, I believe, and we've been fortunate to be the broker-dealer of record on, I think it's 106 or 107 Reg A's now over the last 18 months. So obviously it's been a very busy time for us. We've certainly been able to learn a lot about what works well, what doesn't work well. We've done a number of transactions, and I've shared clients with Reg D Resources. Reg D Resources, if you Google Reg A, they're always at the top. So they're doing something right. And of course, Oscar, I've developed a very great personal relationship with Oscar and his amazing growing team at Core Connects. We're doing a lot of stuff together with them as well. Pleasure to be here again, guys.
But it's great. We are going to have a really, really good discussion because, you know, it is going to be around Reg A, but it could be applied to any regulation. I think it's just as important to make that distinction for those who are listening in. We are going to focus on Reg A because it does take a large group of people to work with. But the discussion today is the importance of working with a well-experienced team. And you notice we have the word team. Team is the key word here in this discussion. And so obviously it's on your team. You, like you said, 106. So you're the broker dealer. You're one a very important piece, like all the pieces in this puzzle that needs to go well together to work. How important has this been for you since you've been there right from the beginning, making sure that, and if you can give me some examples in areas where you feel companies really need to focus on when it comes to experience, please.
So there's a number of groups, companies, individuals that have to come together to launch a Reg A. They include obviously the securities attorney, the broker dealer, the funding platform technology, the transfer agent, and obviously, you know, in investor relations is important as well. I think it's critical to work with a experienced team, to one that has been able to see, you know, high volume offerings, how they work, what works, what doesn't work, what the expectations should be. A group that has worked together with each other, I think, is very beneficial for a first-time issuer. It adds a level of predictability and efficiency to the process, which I think are very important. It's hard enough to focus on raising money for your offering. You really want everything else to work together as seamlessly as possible. And by working with a group, and certainly with an ecosystem that has experience working together hand in hand, deal after deal, it just makes the process so much more efficient for the service providers, and most importantly for the issuer, right? Who's approaching this for the first time, and they're hearing about all these different pieces, these moving parts. How do you decide? What do you do? Who do you listen to? Everyone has a pitch about what differentiates them, what they're great about, but to work with the team that just is over and over again doing deal after deal, I know that if I was in the shoes of the issuer, that would be very valuable to me. And I personally see how valuable that could be for our issuers. So that's my view on that. And it's, I think it's becoming more and more apparent as we see folks that don't always have the best experience elsewhere, and learn the hard way about not setting things up right from the beginning. And so I feel very blessed and fortunate to be with you guys, both of you guys. I know we do a lot of work with CorpConnex. We certainly think the world of you guys, not only from an educational resource perspective, but as a service provider perspective. I know you guys are up at 11 at night, midnight, sweating the small stuff to make sure that things work. And those are the types of folks, and those are the types of providers that you really want on your team. Done it before, that are committed to the process and could add value. And I could say the same thing about Doug and your team. You guys have been at this for a while. I know we have a number of clients together. I know you've referred a few over recently as well, so thank you for that. But again, this is an example of a group, coincidentally, that has some experience working together, and I can't stress how important I think that is.
Yeah, we are moving into. Some people refer we're coming into the second inning, but like anytime you get a new playbook, and we obviously, this discussion is not meant to discourage anyone else who wants to enter the market to participate. Not at all. I think, at least from my point of view, is to indicate that you can't do this alone. You just can't. Any company that's telling you, no, and it's okay, we do that. Oh no, we do that. We do that. We do that. That's just not possible. We've not seen that. And those who make that attempt, obviously, Douglas, your name came up yesterday in another discussion with a client, and it's rather funny. I got to tell you a story because I found it rather interesting as I'm talking about RegA, talking about team sport, and working collaboratively with providers who have the advisory services, and we don't. And this client goes, I have this great company that I need you to meet, because I've known Doug for 10 years or so. And I go, and Doug, and I go, yeah, sure, I'd love to meet him. What's the name of the company? Regulation D. So, well, isn't that great? We're already working. So immediately when people start recognizing that there's a value in why we work together, is that, and Douglas, I mean, your firm does a few things which are unique to your firm. So talk about how important that has become for you to be able to scale and bring on more business as well. And why it's important, obviously, from a RegA perspective, right?
Well, yeah, I think too, it's important to understand that this is a complex process. And one of the things that I think you've touched upon that's important is you can't do it yourself. It just requires a good team. There's a lot of different pieces involved, and it can even be driven back to simple things like, for example, we have a lot of clients that when they get started with us, there's corporate cleanup issues that need to be handled. They may not have employment agreements with senior executives. And so a lot of times it even, as far as the team aspect, I mean, it even goes beyond just, getting on board, a good broker dealer or a good transfer agent or a good escrow company. But it even drives back to the counsel that the client's getting, the issuer's getting, even from their own team, having a good corporate attorney on board that can be there to redraft bylaws or create a shareholder agreement. Because what we've found is when people come into this process, it is. It's a new process for them. And they maybe have even been through more simplistic offerings before, like Reg Ds, and they think they're going to have a handle on what's going to be required. And I think part of what to look at too is that there's a benefit to that complexity. And that is that you end up with a sophisticated vehicle for raising money, and you end up with something that, while it does require a team, it is really going to set you up hopefully for success in the long term in terms of raising money. But I think that the team aspect is important, because part of the issues we find sometimes as far as delays in getting clients to market is a lot of times that maybe the client's working with a CPA that doesn't quite understand what we need for the filing, or they're working with a corporate attorney and he doesn't quite understand, changes to bylaws that need to be made to get it congruent with the offering. So these are things that, at the end of the day, part of what we try and do, and again, this is, in working with the client, is align them with best of class vendors, because it's going to make their life easier if they're working with people that understand the process and are going to be able to get work done in a timely manner and get it done accurately.
You touched on a really good point there. I was going to go right into the broker-dealer side, but I'm going to wait for you on that one. But I cannot emphasize that element that you just brought up there on the legals. A good wake-up call for everyone. I often hear, I got a great corporate lawyer. I've had him for 10, 15 years. I go, that's fantastic. You're going to need them. But guess what? What you need now is a transactional lawyer who understands this regulation, who understands all the bits and has filed and has been qualified. That's what you need now. And you're right. This is like a lot of the times people get guarded. They go, well, I'm a lawyer. I should be able to do this. Of course you can. You can take a year or 2 years to learn this, or you can go to somebody that knows how to do it and get it done in 30 days. It's entirely up to you. It's or it's X dollars or X dollars. I've run into that in a number of cases, and it's been quite positive actually, meaning that the client has been able to understand the difference by allowing them to speak to the professionals directly and for them to see it. But we've also run into an issue where those who have attempted have gotten clients into a bit of a hot water per se, because again, when they don't know, they don't know. And there are a number of issues that RegA brings up. You're talking about the bylaws. I'm talking about a simple thing like, I'm going to issue warrants. And people go, well, what's so difficult about that? Well, in RegA, it's very different than any other regulation. Reg D, you can offer warrants and just like that. But in RegA, no. It's very different. It's just like selling securities, and you got to have a whole new agreement. And it's experience working with the team collaboratively. One thing that I'm going to share, just in my experience working with all of you, everyone, I love the way everyone comes together when we have a problem. I think this is I want to touch on that, because I want everybody to be prepared for this. There will be a problem. Right, Etan? Would you not agree?
Look, we are at a time, like I mentioned before, where there's new regulations and there's tremendous innovation. There's new technology, and it's all coming together at the same time. So a lot of what we do is the first time doing it. So things come up and you learn, and we're still learning. We're still learning a lot on, we got RegA pretty much down pat. And Reg CF is a totally different animal. It's a totally different set of regulations, totally different relationship with the client. And these are learning experiences, right? And going through that process together with other service providers that you've developed a relationship with for years, and you know each other and you're friends at this point, it's like you kind of all have your back, each other's back, and you know how to work together and bring the teams together, from a compliance to a technology, from a tech perspective, to a to communication to the client's perspective, to just really be transparent and learn and evolve, right? So I consider Reg CF still a pretty new phenomenon. right? It's just really just taken off over the last year or so. And certainly what we're doing which is kind of on the CF side, which is, again, it looks and feels more like a RegA process, right? It's giving the issuer really their own domain to launch their Reg CF offering from. With that comes, a host of opportunities, challenges, and we're still getting better, right? After doing as many RegAs as we have, we're still learning every day. So I agree with you, Oscar. I think that going through that process together, when a problem comes up, it could be a technology problem, it could be a regulatory concern, right? We can relate to all these types of things. How do you handle that together? And how do you rely on each other to look out for each other and work together as a team, and then handle it properly with the clients as well, and then learn from that, and then so that you could try to prevent it next time around by making changes on the policies and procedure side, on the technology side, on the disclosure side. So that's another really good point you brought up. The working with good people that you trust, that you respect in a transparent way. That's part of the team, right? It's having those team members that you can rely on and are capable for really handling what their responsibilities are.
Well, yeah, they don't crumple on you at the last minute, right? They don't go in the corner and run away. Everybody needs to come together. We recognize, and I think that's the one thing that I've been using. We've all have, and I apologize, I shouldn't say I, but we all have been using this term. We keep telling people it's a team sport over and over again, but the sport is not just to win, but it's also the team is there to deal with these bumps along the way that are going to come up that could be unforeseen by anyone. But as a team, we can solve it so much quicker because everybody is doing instantaneous reaching out to all contacts to bring a constructive answer, bringing it back to the nerve, and then boom, there's our answer.
Yeah.
I saw it in full hand number of months ago when we were having the credit card issue. We brought it out in the open, we started getting swarming in, and then solving it like that. And I think that's one of the biggest values that people need to ask is people go, well, Douglas, what's been your success rate? Well, Douglas, you're not based on success. You're creating the information. My success is my documents were properly created. The real question I think people should be asking, so if something goes wrong, what happens? Well, we have a team of people that are going to be there. And that's the one thing that I'm emphasizing a little bit more now. I just did a demonstration. I said, look, as much as the pretty picture I painted for you, there are going to be unexpected surprises. And the good thing is you're going to have a broker dealer there for one part. You're going to have the lawyer in the other. You're going to have the auditor. You're going to have us, and you're going to have all of us in a room, 20, 30 people that are going to solve this problem with you. You're not alone. That's what makes the difference to getting this completed. It all starts with making sure that we have all the right partners in place.
Yeah.
Douglas, you mentioned the lawyer. Well, now I'm going to move into the broker dealer. Dalmore has created a niche in the market in what you've done, but there are other BDs who are trying to get in, and they're struggling with this. And this is ultimately when something like that struggles, who pays the price. So this is a cautionary thing that I tell people as well. So tell me the journey that you guys went through as you decided to pivot into RegA, because I think that's just as important because it changes your culture, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. So again, we've been at this since 2005, and right through the Jobs Act, we were amongst the first broker dealers to really focus on 506C, right? So we served, and we still do, as the broker dealer of record for a number of what I call high-profile serial online syndicators of equity and debt, many of whom are in the real estate space. Like Into.com is an example. They acquired Realty Shares and a number of others. And so we were already set up from a compliance and an infrastructure and support perspective to handle online capital raises, to oversee KYC, AML, suitability, OFAC, diligence, filing with FINRA, et cetera. And so that was a natural progression when RegA presented itself. It was a law firm, a national law firm that introduced a client that was raising money for something called a RegA Plus offering. And fortunately, we had some members of our compliance team that had some experience. And there's only a few people that actually had experience kind of going through a Reg A at the time. And so we took it on, and then another one came, and then another one came, and then we started getting calls from issuers who did their homework and said, hey, I saw that you're the broker dealer on this offering that I want to model my business to be like. Could you put together the team for us? We want to be like that, right? And then it kind of grows based on that. It's all publicly available. If you Google SEC 1-A, and I encourage every issuer to do that, you could see everything. It's a little cumbersome to how to find it and search for it, but you can see who the broker dealer is. You can see who the providers are, who the attorneys are, how much we're paid, what our structure is. It's all available, and you definitely should check it out. But I think that the more research people do, the more times they come across your name, the more comfort they have in recognizing you've done this before. You've been the broker dealer. We've had issuers who have raised 50 million, 40 million, 30 million, 20 million, you know, over and over again. And so again, we've learned what's right. So that's kind of how we got involved in Reg A. I look at Reg A almost like a souped up Reg D to an extent. Obviously, there's reporting requirements, there's qualification, it's a different regulation completely. But in essence, what it does is it allows you to, you know, market your offering online to anyone as opposed to just to accredited investors. And that's profound because you're not limited to 5% of the investors, you have 100%. So that was a real natural progression with our experience in 506C, focusing on Reg A. And by extension, it was that applies to our current focus on Reg CF as well. We didn't frankly care too much about it at $1 million. You know, you don't get the qualification, you don't get the no objection, you don't get the audited financials, right? So for an investment bank broker dealer to take on $1.07 million raise is not that exciting. But at $5 million, it's a natural first base for many of our larger Reg A issuers. It's almost like a test the waters for a bigger Reg A. That's what we're seeing, right? It's a lot more cost effective to get started. It's a matter of weeks as opposed to months, right? You don't need the audit unless you have to raise over 1.07, unfortunately, which we learned last week. But you know, at least you get up to 1.07 million without having to worry about that for now. So it's a natural first base, and so that's kind of the evolution of our focus. You know, right through the Jobs Act, 506C, Reg A, Reg CF, and it's been an interesting ride so far.
Yeah, in it's obviously you pivoted just in time while others waited, and now they're coming in. And I personally see where the same way some law firms are struggling to meet or do the kind of work that Douglas and others do in the ecosystem in the way they do, they're not structured for that. Same thing, some BDs are very rigid in their way they operate, right? They're still in the mentality of Reg D, and you go, no, that's all you, no, we need to have this. And I said, well, you can put all that there, but it's not going to fly. The investor's just going to go, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to invest. So that's why I say it's just as important to ask the question of from the partner that the company is going to work with, is to ensure that not only have they done it before, but how have they resolved their issues when problems go wrong. And we're now experiencing that there could be a number of areas, and that's why the team sport is needed, right? It could be from a legal perspective, as Douglas said, could be from a broker dealer perspective, could be compliance, could be the front end on the technology side. So Douglas, I'm going to go to you. I mean, you've been doing this for a while as well. How are you orchestrating your clients as you navigate them? Because you're providing a quarterback plus legal services at the same time, and a little bit of compliance, I believe. But I know you're not doing the broker dealer at others, but you're navigating them through all of this. How are you doing that now that the Reg A ecosystem has even grown? Because it even has investor acquisition providers. Does that change it for you? Does it make it easier, more valid? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a specific role that we play, which is, you know, quarterbacking the process, working with the client on structuring, getting the Form 1A drafted, and obviously assembling all the needed exhibits. And then we do file directly. That's one of the processes we internally decided to handle. We didn't want to use outside filer agents. So we have all the Edgar conversion software in-house. We do all that in-house. And, you know, I think one of the things that that I try and get people to understand when they're getting ready to do a high profile offering or an offering, shall I say, that's going to go out to the public, whether it be, especially RegA Plus, but even a 506C, but especially RegA Plus with the team aspect. And that is this, we're going to put you on stage. You're going to take your company and your fundamentals and your opportunity, and you're going to be put out on stage, and you're going to have the public, as far as the investing public, have an opportunity to decide whether they want to invest into what you're offering. And I think then when you look at it that way, one of the key things to really keep in mind then is you only get one shot at making a solid first impression with investors. And that's why then it's key to have a good team on board. And again, it starts in the very beginning, but especially when you're going to market. I mean, having a good broker dealer on board, having a transfer agent that makes the investor experience seamless. If someone's going through a process to invest in your company and you've made it hard for them to just get through the process of them purchasing shares in your company, that's not good. And I think that's the interesting part of this industry right now is you're seeing you're seeing the process of raising money become democratized, right? So you're seeing smaller companies getting the ability to go execute the kind of offering that used to cost several $100,000 or more just to prepare. And it's good. I mean, these are the kind of things that we want to see, because we want to see small, medium-sized businesses get better access to capital. And RegA Plus is that really just a great middle ground. It's not for everybody, but it is a great middle ground between the simplicity of a Reg D, but unfortunately you've got a small amount of the investing public you can reach, 506C, obviously, accredited investors, versus a full-on S1 where that's a bridge too far for a lot of companies, nor do they need that. And yet Reg A is that great middle ground. It's going to give you the capability to treat your offering like a full-on public offering. It is essentially, and yet you can reach the entire market, and yet you're not being subjected to a lot of the regulatory overhead and compliance burdens that a fully public company would be subjected to. Most companies are probably going to benefit from remaining private, or at least staying private for a period of time after they capitalize. And so I think as we stepped into this space, because we were huge proponents for 506C. We've been operating since 1999. And as we operated through the 2000s, we were lobbying the SEC to make changes to the solicitation rules, because we were watching social media develop, and we're watching the internet develop. We're watching all these things develop that were, incredible tools to get exposure for an offering. And yet, if you were doing Reg Ds, you couldn't touch it. So watching these programs progress has obviously been exciting. But it really does then require that you've got in place the infrastructure to execute properly. And that's part of what we then try and do. And part of the expectation I set with clients is you shouldn't try and bootstrap a Reg A Plus. You shouldn't. You should not try and cost cut, or, gee, we're going to do this, but we don't really want to have Dalmore on board as our administrative broker dealer because we're trying to kind of do this and bootstrap it. I mean, it's just you're going to end up then having a situation where you're going to run into issues, or you're not going to have the investor experience that you really want. And ultimately, if you had come in with a little bit better of a budget and put the proper team in place, put the A team in place, you're going to position yourself for success better. Your investors are going to have a better experience. And if a problem does arise, you've got a team of experts there, guys that have been there and done that are going to be able to solve that problem for you efficiently. And look, the ultimate goal here is get these companies out, have them capitalize, have them do it in a proper manner, and get them through the process as efficiently as possible. And that just requires a certain team, and that's going to require some money. And that's, like I said, that's the other thing that I really try and set as far as expectation with clients that come into this process, is that they really should come in properly capitalized so they can put in place the proper team to do it properly.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, proper capitalization is a critical element, and sometimes it's overlooked. I shouldn't say overlooked. Some people try to say you don't need as much, but the reality is that's that's putting people at risk because they're coming unprepared, right? They think that, oh, I got 100,000, I'm ready to go. It'll cover everything. And I do feel bad for certain issuers that come like that, but you're right. I mean, this ecosystem, all of us in the team recognize now the value that everybody brings. There is a fee with a broker dealer. People go, well, I'm just paying them the fee for nothing. No, that is not true. The broker dealer needs to submit a form to FINRA. The same way you are getting approved with them, FINRA is approving you with them. So this is really an interesting element that people just think that it's just throwing money at providers for the sake of them earning a fee. They're going to earn their fee when they do the raise, but there are some regulatory issues that need to go prior to that, and there's an expense to it. And again, a team that knows and keeps working together and expanding that, right? So I'm a firm believer that we need to keep expanding it because we're going to need more. We need more distribution. As you know, as of Monday, we can now raise 75 million with RegA. So we're under a lot of pressure to find new distribution channels for that. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is finding other partners to work with who have access to that, and they need to feel the comfort of what we built here in the ecosystem. So.
Well, the other thing too, Oscar, is here's the thing too, is so much of this comes down to investor confidence, right? And obviously a big part of that is the company itself. Is the company well positioned? Do they have good fundamentals? But the other part of it is the team. And like, for example, with Eitan and with Dalmore, I mean, in my opinion, what they provide is the fees for that are so reasonable. I don't know why you wouldn't go with that. And I think part of the thing here is that one of the things that people, yes, they're going to earn their fee. Yes, they're going to have certain things that they're doing, but let's not forget that the fact of having a broker dealer affiliated with the offering just in general is going to build confidence with investors. And I think that's the other thing to look at is, yes, that, Dalmore and any broker dealer that's going to be serving that capacity, yes, they're going to have fees, and yes, they're going to have certain duties and responsibilities, and they're going to earn their fee. But it goes beyond that. It really drives down to the fact that you're putting in place this essentially, you're, like I said, putting the client on stage, and the confidence the investor then has that there is a 50 state FINRA broker dealer on board. That's invaluable to me. If I was doing an offering, I would want that, because I know from experience that an investor looking at that offering is going to have a different confidence level than looking at an offering that doesn't have a Dalmore on board, or even transfer agent wise. Like I said, that investor experience, it's one of the things that we love about CoreConnex. You guys have really taken the time to look at how can we make this investor experience and this process as efficient and as seamless as possible. And that matters as well. So I think that's the thing is the team isn't, yes, the team is there to get you through the process properly, but it also is there so that it builds confidence with the investors, and that's going to hopefully lead to a successful offering.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up. I mean, I'm a big advocate of having broker dealers involved in an offering. In fact, Eitan and I last night, we were chuckling about a particular client as to why we decided to go with them. I only went with them because they said they were going to go with Dalmore, and Dan was saying the only reason we took them on is because we thought so. Because we won't take on a client without a broker dealer. And even though we're a technology company, we created a standard ourselves because we understand the dangers that it could possess for all of us. All it takes is one bad deal gone the wrong way, badly. It affects us all. It won't shut us down. No, it won't do that. David Wheel said it best. He goes, Oscar, this is the year where there's going to be a blow up. That's fine. We're ready for it. As an ecosystem, as it's a team, players working together, we're ready for it. We can come out and say why that happened and why it won't happen here. And I think it starts with that. It's a given, most of them with a lawyer, but it's not a given so many times with the broker dealer. And I'm not going to blame the issuer anymore on this one. I'm not. I think the industry itself needs to take a little bit of that grunt because they've been. I've heard a webinar just recently, as yesterday, from a provider who does RegAs, saying, well, you can just get a broker dealer. All they do is this stuff. They collect their percentage fee, and don't worry, they're in the background. And it's sort of like, whoa, what do you mean they're in the background? So I'm an advocate, and I don't know, Itan. I mean, Dalmor is really coming out in the forefront of this, right? And we're emphasizing the importance of it, but I believe it's part of the educating part of the role that the broker dealer. So I'm just going to ask you just high level items, because I think it's important for people to know, just to what Douglas was saying, just exactly all the things a broker dealer is doing and what you're responsible for that insurance policy, because that's what I call it.
Yeah, it's significant. It starts with diligence. It starts with bad actor checks on the company and all the officers and directors. It continues to kind of coordinating the process with the various different providers and overseeing that with supervisory access. It continues to reviewing and approving or commenting on all of the advertising and promotional materials, right? That's easy to overlook, but it's not something you want to overlook. So it's having a broker dealer involved that's going to efficiently review and comment and approve and not slow the process down, but also keep you out of trouble from that perspective is important. And then it goes on to capturing, maintaining, and storing all of the due diligence on the investors, right? The KYC, AML, suitability, OFAC, investor, suitability attestations, the signed subscription agreements. We're the regulated entity who's responsible for making sure that's done and for storing it. So when the regulators come knocking, and they do every year, whether it's the SEC or FINRA or the states, we're the ones they come to and say, show us the diligence, show us the reports, show us this, show us that. And we need to have our game, our A game in play and be very organized and prepared for that, because it comes. The beauty of the regulated marketplace, and we've been at this for 16 years, is that it forces transparency. There's no shortcuts allowed. Everything is going to be combed, fine-tooth comb. The lights are going to be on, and every decision you make now, you have to be prepared for it to be in the public eye tomorrow. And that's how you have to think as a regulated entity, as a broker dealer, if you want to be in business, right? If you want to survive, especially if you're in the crowdfunding space where you're helping to facilitate non-accredited investors to participate in new companies. You need to make sure the disclosure, disclaimers, the advertising, the diligence, all these things have to be in harmony. And that's kind of the role. But it goes beyond that. It goes well beyond that. It goes into what is investor acquisition, who to work with, what's our expectations, who to stay away from, who have you seen perform, what is the budget for this, how long does it really take? The real questions, not the initial roles, but like the real value add, or this provider is charging me this amount of credit card processing, and we're telling them, okay, 70% of your investors are going to be using credit cards. If we can help you get that down a point or two, that's more value add than our entire fee. And additional, the other focus that the big value add I think we provide is we happen to be the broker dealer on many of Start Engine and Republic's own RegA offerings, right? Ones that they have are either co-managers or co-owners of the issuer that require them to use a third-party BD, right, as opposed to their own for that purpose. So we have a really good relationship with a number of the leading kind of platforms out there. And we're also able to get some of our selected issuers listed on those platforms. I mean, the issuer has to want to, and Start Engine or Republic have to choose to accept them. But we've done that, and we're doing that. And it's very interesting because it allows for an issuer to contract with us, set up their own offering at a very low relative cost, and direct all of their promotional efforts, all of their marketing, all their PR, all their friends and families, all potential institutions to their own page to transact. And then they could, from a position of strength, say, okay, what other platforms do I want to get listed on? People say, how do you syndicate and distribute? It's very different than Reg D. where there was a lead broker and a syndicate group where you pay the lead broker 8% and then the lead broker would pay the syndicate member, the selling group member 7%. It's very different. It's reverse. In this model, the issuer pays Dalmore 1%, and then if you want to go and pay Republic or Start Engine their much higher fees, they deserve it if they're delivering you clients that you otherwise wouldn't have seen. So there's a lot of innovation going on as far as how to assist with what I call digital syndication. It's a new thing, and that just gives the issuer the ability, really only on a success fee basis, to get in front of a lot more eyeballs that they otherwise wouldn't have come across through their own network or their own advertising or promotion. So that's a big area of focus. I think that's going to continue as well.
Yeah, it's obviously all of this is evolving, and it's going to become even more critical as we start making sure that everybody we're working with, I mean, I'll remind everyone again, we're in an industry of forward momentum. It's evolving at the same time. So the same way that you got into it when you pivoted and you made the change, you got to keep making the change, because this is one of those regulations that it's not just simply sitting there waiting for it to happen. There's other pieces involved: legals, accounting, technology. It's amazing how much technology is playing a role. And during that time, we're dealing with a crisis. What's a crisis? Well, Apple and Google are fighting. And people will, wait a minute, what does that have to do with online investing? Well, it has a great deal to do with it, because marketers are doing their job, and this fight has a huge impact. Sorry, Google, Apple, Facebook. My sincerest apologies. I forgot to add the third piece to that carrot, which has made it has changed everything once again. Apple's blocking things. It's working on one world. It's not another. This had nothing to do with Dalmore. It had nothing to do with you on the legals. It's now just a new component. So it's not so simple anymore. And these are the challenges that are going to continually evolving in this industry. And they're going to come at us where, it comes regulatory, and how does that affect the technology? People think, well, it's just a regulate. No, maybe there's something now they want us to ask that we didn't ask before. And people go, oh, just add it on. It's not that simple. Everybody thinks it's so simple, just adding the check mark. And yeah, so these are all the things that I think we're taking in consideration as we move forward. And
Oscar, to add one thing too to what Eitan was saying. Let's not forget that there's the problem states out there as well. So, one of the other benefits having a broker dealer on board is that you don't have to worry about the additional filing work in those problem states. And that's something too. I mean, Texas, Florida, Washington, New Jersey, Nevada, Arizona. I mean, there's a number of states that don't make it, easy on an issuer to directly sell. And that's another big advantage of having, a Dalmore on board is you don't have to then worry about having that extra filing work to try and sell in those states.
That's very true. And you know what? It's a perception issue, because when people think about broker dealer, they think about 6% and warrants. That's what the people think about when they think about like a broker. If I hire a broker dealer, they're going to take investment banker fees, right? And maybe I'll hire them if they could raise me money. But this whole, but the reality is that, at least with us, we make it very cost effective for the broker dealer, for the coverage that allows for you to freely kind of sell securities in all 50 states. And that's important because, the numbers that we're seeing, I don't know what you guys are seeing, but it could be 20, 30% if you add up of total national online investment activity in some offerings. Because Florida and Texas are huge as far as, investment activity online. And so it's actually cost effective to hire BD as opposed to trying to navigate through that process of registering as a broker in each of these specific states. And you're paying a lot more legal fees. It's a very challenging thing to do. But I don't think people are, I think now they're becoming more aware of this. But I think the perception of hiring a broker dealer was like, people would shy away from. But yes, I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, and I'll throw another part to this that we didn't have this when all of this got started, is that we had to consider the broker dealer, then interacting and making sure we collected the right data. But why are we collecting all that data? Why is the purpose? Well, obviously the broker dealer has a requirement with FINRA, but now there's another piece to all this. Why broker dealers are more important than ever. What is the one golden thing about a Reg A that everybody likes is the fact that the investor gets a free trading security, right? We're all talking about it. Well, here is the one part that most people severely overlook. If the offering is not done by a broker dealer and you did your own ID and AML on your own, guess what? As soon as that investor goes to the secondary market, it's going to have to go all over again.
Yeah.
So whatever you paid there, you're going to pay again a second time. That in itself is part of the because we can't. You're not a regulated person to understand. It wasn't just the ID and OFAC, it's suitability. Did this investor invest the right amount of money into your company and not exceed their limit? Because in secondary market, that's, it's all tracked. So this is where all of this is emerging to. I think we're having these discussions because everybody now has different amounts of experience. You bring in a 33 lawyer into the discussion, you hear from the issuer side and the investor. You bring a 34 lawyer in, he's there to talk what Itan and the broker-dealer community can do. And you start putting everyone in, you can get there so much faster, right? Yeah. So much faster. I mean, I know I've certainly appreciated in the last couple weekends. Yeah, and I'm certainly going to appreciate it this weekend again as more challenges, because the issuers need to be educated as well, right? We've been in situations where people go, "Oh, I don't want any of that stuff." It's not whether you want it there or not. It's there for a reason. It's there because the broker dealer needs to transact and be able to do this for you. If you don't get it now, when do you want to get it? You mean you want the B to go on and fetch it for you? Well, that's going to cost you more because somebody now manually has to go out there and, hey, Douglas, can you send me your, driver's license or your social security number, whatever it is, and I need that in order to do an ID and AML check on you, right? So I really believe we're at that stage where every little bit and piece is so important that I'm not overlooking any part. In fact, I'm going to spend one webinar just on the investment process. And the reason for that is to educate the issuers why you need this, and that, because it's unbelievable how many of them believe that it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary to them, but it's necessary for everyone else doing their job. And recently, I've been giving them a bit of education on secondary market. You think primary, they want it a lot. Well, wait till they get to secondary. What do you mean? They're going to need to show a bank statement, a government ID. They're going to need to say whether they are an accredited sophistication level. They're going to need to declare their income, their assets. So believe me, throughout this journey, that information, if that's what you're promising them, then prepare them properly. So to see what we're doing, we're preparing the companies. We now need to prepare the ecosystem so everybody can go in with a bit of an expectation into this. So,
what's funny, Oscar, is one of the ones we get in a lot is people look at tier one with rose-colored glasses because there's no audit requirement. And one of the things that they miss is really two things. The first is that a lot of the states, because you're going to have to qualify a tier one at the state level, a lot of the states, their state rules are going to require audited financials anyways. And then the second thing they miss is you're going to have to pay someone, a firm like ours or somebody, to file at the state level. And, if the client is looking to try and avoid doing audited financials, after you've paid a firm to qualify at the state level in just a handful of states, you're probably past what the audit costs would have been, and you could have sold in all 50 states. And then that also leads into the fact that if you're going to onboard outside investors into your company, best practice would be you're doing audited financials anyways to protect yourself, the company, and the investors' interests as well. And those are things that we'll unwind on the very first call. A lot of times is we have people that call in and say, hey, we're interested in doing a tier 1 RegA Plus. And the first question I ask is, well, why? And it's almost invariably, well, we want to avoid the audit. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that, because you're really not going to escape it. And you're certainly not going to probably come out of that equation better financially. But the real purpose of a RegA Plus is that ability to go nationwide and to be able to accommodate everybody as an investor. And I don't know why you'd want to limit yourself. Maybe there's certain instances where a tier 1 might work, but for the most part, tier 2 is going to be the way to go. But that's just a perfect example of the educational aspect, which is people look at tier 1 and go, oh, great, no audited financials, let's do that. And then what they don't realize is that it's not really going to work out the way they think after they get into the process and have to qualify at the state level.
Yeah, we had a client that went through that, paid for it, and was mad as hell that nobody told them that they should have done a tier 2. But again, back to the whole discussion, it's about teaming yourself with the proper individuals so you can do your offering. Look, what is the measurement of success? I mean, this is an interesting word. The measurement of success, of course, to the issuer is doing their capital raise. But in order to do your capital raise successfully, you also need to do it fully compliantly, because just because you raised your money, you're not done yet. We already know that the SEC can always come down and say, give it all back. And that's already been done once. So, and sorry, not by the SEC, it could be by the payment provider, or it could be by whatever form. So we really need to make sure that everybody understands success is measured, making sure this is fully compliant, so you're successful, so you can sleep at night, you can rest, you can do your work, and then make sure that the dollar you got, you paid everybody, and you can start operating your business and taking advantage of what the Jobs Act has to offer. So I'd love to hear your last words. I mean, obviously you and I, and of course you too, Douglas, as well, but you and I lately have been dealing with these. It's so imperative, and I thought it was so timely that we're having the discussion, but I'd love to hear your last comments on working together as a team.
So I pretty much have been working from like 6 a.m. to like 1 or 2 a.m. It feels like every day, inbound. Thank God, it's a really nice, great place to be, but it's a lot. And the industry, it's indicative of how much this industry is growing. And I know the three of us all feel this equally, right? In our schedules, we see the opportunity, we see the number of clients that are moving in this direction. It's grown right through 2020, and it's going to continue to grow at that pace or more through 2020. We're at a really interesting space right now. And, you know, my last thoughts are, look, you know, there's a couple utilizations of RegA that I'm seeing really trending here. I'm seeing many of these series issuers, right? The fractionalized ownership interest in different assets, and kind of how that feeds into digitization of securities, and how that feeds into the transfer agent, and how that feeds into the secondary trading side going on. A lot of strategies in pretty much every industry, from real estate to collectibles to revenue streams to contracts, you name it. People are fractionalizing these things. You see it in non-fungible tokens as well. There's a big trend towards companies that are getting qualified to raise up to the full 75 million, and then launching individual assets one at a time, and giving investors the ability to participate in specific assets, whether it's a racehorse, whether it's a Michael Jordan's rookie card, whether it's a single family home. We're seeing a huge swing, a huge increase in those types of issuers. We happen to be the broker dealer on many of these series issuers. It happens to be my favorite utilization of RegA, because ultimately they create an app, they create an ecosystem, they do right by their investors, and then the investors tell their brothers and their uncles and their neighbors, and some of them, as they release an asset, they sell out in minutes, and that's really interesting. I think we're going to see a continued trend, but I will tell you that it's been a pleasure, you know, working with Doug and your team at RegD. I think you guys are a high-class shop. I know that from at least in my travels through the industry, you guys have a really strong reputation. So it's a pleasure to be working with you guys. I think you provide a really good comprehensive service to issuers that should definitely consider talking with you as they approach, as they navigate the process. And certainly Oscar and Core Connect, Oscar, I speak with you more than my wife. And I know that we're working on a lot of things together, really designed to make this seamless and predictable for the investors and for the issuers, right? Because we sleep at night when they're happy, right? Yeah. And if there's an issue or if there's a vulnerability from the investor's perspective or the issuer's perspective, we're the kind of guys that take that personally, and it affects our sleep. And we want it to be smooth, and we want to make it better. And that's the importance of working with a team that has people that are committed, not just have done it before, but just really want to get it right, and are not okay until the ship is tight. And so I'm blessed and grateful to be working with both of you guys. So thank you for that.
Perfect. Douglas, your words.
I would say this. First of all, thank you, Eitan, for the nice words. I appreciate that. I'm really excited to be, affiliated with both of your firms. And, we only want to work with best-in-class vendors. And, we understand the importance of that. And I think part of what I want to focus on kind of here at the end is just that, for the issuer, they understand their business. They understand that, that they're a software company, or they're a real estate developer, or they're a manufacturing company. But, most of these clients that come into this process don't know what they don't know. And it's our job to help educate them on the pitfalls. It's our job to work them through this process efficiently. And ultimately the goal is, like I said, put them on stage with the right team and let their opportunity get the exposure it needs to either succeed or fail. Obviously there's no way to assure someone they're going to have a successful offering, but the goal is set them up for success, put them on stage, let them get that market exposure. Hopefully they have a successful offering. And, really you have to look at it as, who do you want to take the stage with? Do you want to be, with the Grammy winners or not? And that's just the way I look at this process is, again, it's not a process you want to shortcut. You really want to put the right team in place. You want to have the right ingredients there, because it's going to make a difference in the end. And even little things make a difference. It's like I've said, one of the things that I really love about Oscar's company is the fact that they've really worked hard on the investor experience. And that matters. It really does. So I think, when you're contemplating this type of offering, it is a complex process, but ultimately the goal is get on market with the right people, with the right team, and it's going to make the issuer's life that much easier, because, they're going to have that support they need to execute, hopefully be successful, and, look back on the experience as a positive experience.
Agreed. And obviously we want them to come back the next year and the next year, as Dalmor has experienced. It can be very fruitful when you've done it right the first time. And doing it right doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean you have to race it all. It just means that it went smooth. There are going to be bumps along the way. And as we discussed here today, the real key is working with a well-qualified team. Simply by asking the right questions of each of the people you work with will be a determination of your success. And the nice thing about this particular regulation, all of this is available in the general public. It's been very difficult to find. We're trying to make it easy by bringing this education for you. Douglas and Eitan's details, you can find them at coresummit.io. You can see their LinkedIn profile. You'll see their LinkedIn email account, their email account, so you can reach out to them directly. Or you can email us and we'll be more than happy to make the introductions or share them with you. We want to remove the friction for you to get started, to really be part of this phenomenal momentum of the Jobs Act, which allows you to raise up to 75 million. So, Eitan, Douglas, great having a conversation with you. Obviously, this ecosystem keeps growing because of companies like yourselves and the fact that you're both extremely open-minded in many different ways is your game, in my view, is the way that you look at this. And what that means is that we're open for new surprises that lie ahead. So until next time, everyone, we look forward to seeing you again at another Core Summit webinar series coming up tomorrow, of course. Till then, have a great week, successful week for everyone. Cheers. Have a good one.